I'm alive! I'm alive! Yeah? Oh, yeah! Hey, Christine! You're here too! I love you!
I know.
Dad, what's happening?
Honey, the power works! It's coming, it goes on and off whenever we want! We've got clean water! Oh, that's great, look at that! Ooh, I bet I know what this does! Rain down the glorious water! Ah, shoes. Oh, what do we got here, guys? Food! I love food. What? A beef steak? Are you gonna have work? This is awesome! Look, listen here. Dee, the what?
Jack, be careful!
Oh, I have a car! This is great! Did you guys see this?
Yeah, you have a car!
A car!
And don't forget your coffee.
You're the best.
I love that you had to poke a hole to drink the coffee. That sealed it for me. Good morning, Joy. I hope you are doing good this morning. I am Colin, the director of youth ministry here at Joy, and we are in week 2 of our How to Eat an Elephant series, where we are taking bite-sized pieces of living a more generous, giving, and thankful life. Last week, Mark took a bite out of generosity, and this week, if you haven't guessed, we're chewing on gratitude. So what does it mean to live a more thankful life? What would the world look like if the overall gratitude quotient was increased? And does God's word shed any light on the subject? And could we be more like the guy in the video? I think that gratefulness has a lot to do with what we focus on. And in fact, this morning, I have an experiment to try with all of you. I've done this with our high school and middle school students, and they love it. It's their favorite. So just ignore the groans of any children around you. They love it. It's going to be fine. We're going to play for a moment with what happens when we put our focus on different things. It's called the awareness test. I'm going to say a series of phrases designed to get you to be just a bit more aware of the things that you might normally ignore. All right, here's the first one. Every time you swallow, your ears click. Just a little bit. Try swallowing. You might have not noticed it this morning, but your nose is in your peripheral vision, and now you're noticing it. That's a good one for Halloween. Just a reminder, there's a skeleton inside of you. Ooh. At this very moment, you cannot find a comfortable spot in your mouth for your tongue. Oh man, it was comfortable just a second before. Do not notice every time you blink. Just stop noticing it. It's automatic. You should stop noticing it right now. I wish you guys would all stop noticing that you're blinking. You're now swallowing, breathing, and blinking manually. Oh, goodness sakes. That was automatic a second or two. Did you forget that your jaw has weight forcing you now to manually keep it closed? Otherwise, your jaw's just going to be hanging open. That's weird. Oh, yeah, and you're producing saliva. And your body's itching in like maybe 1 or 2 places. And you just remember that you have not cleared your throat in like a couple minutes. Oh, man. Last one. You all are going to hate me. You are just noticing that all your toes are lightly touching each other. That's terrible, isn't it? Some of you are now stuck thinking about your nose for the rest of the morning. You're welcome. I do this to you just to demonstrate that our mental focus has a lot of power over how we think. And I just proved to you that, or somebody else, evil like me, has the power to readjust that focus. So today we're going to take a look at our collective focal point on gratefulness. We're going to get a focused readjustment and maybe see our day-to-day just a little bit more clearly. There's a story of healing in the Bible that I think illustrates this really, really well. It's Luke chapter 17. On his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. And as he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. But one of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and he thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where'd the other 9 go? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" And then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." All right, just a few interesting points here. The fact that Jesus healed them before they even got to the priests, was he just like messing with them? I get curious about this kind of stuff. I get lots of questions. Was it like a healing time release? It was like a reverse kick me sign, like, oh, which one of them noticed who's healed first? Was he wondering who would get healed first? I don't know. We could talk about the fact that he healed foreigners and sent them to Jewish priests, and maybe a way to explain that the healing was available to everybody, not just chosen people. Or maybe the fact that Jesus touched a non-indigenous outcast leper. No one touched lepers. There's like a ton we could unpack from this story. But I just want to poke at one thing this morning. My biggest question is why, out of 10 terminally ill, desperate people, did just one turn back to say thank you? Jesus wondered too, and he asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where did the other 9 go? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" And then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." There's a traditional set of thoughts that someone ascribed to these other 9 lepers, and it's obviously conjecture, but I find it interesting. Maybe one waited to see if the cure was real. Maybe one waited to see if it would last. One said he would see Jesus later, he'd catch up. One decided that he never even had leprosy. One said he would have gotten well anyways. One gave glory to the priests. One said, oh, well, Jesus he didn't really do anything. It just kind of happened. One said, any rabbi could have done it. And one said, I was already much improved. There is no chance that the lives of these 9 lepers were not impacted in a huge way through the healing of Christ. Leprosy affects everything, where you could live, who you could touch. It wasn't just a disease of the skin. They weren't just healed, they were invited back into the whole stream of life. There's no way that these guys were casual about their healing. But only one guy came back praising God in a loud voice and throwing himself at the feet of Jesus who had healed him. Here's the difference, and I'm willing to bet that the other guys were happy and overwhelmed and life-changingly shocked and probably even grateful. But only one leper acted upon that gratefulness. And this morning, I want you to see that gratitude is a choice. We could choose to embrace a healing God, or we can find a million reasons not to. Now, I read a story like this and I think about the modern environment we live in, and unfortunately, the conditions that we live in seem tuned to give us glass, half-empty glasses. We have a constant flow of personally crafted negative media to binge on at our fingertips. Facebook, cable TV, advertisements, viral campaigns, 24-hour news. Or we can get more personal. That Facebook friend that keeps coming in the feed that seems to go on unlimited vacations. How do they afford that? Or the guy that just nabbed that promotion that you wanted? If we were to look at the emotional flow of the environment that we place ourselves in, which way is it flowing? Which way would we have to paddle? Or we would end up mentally somewhere we didn't intend to be. I'm not saying we should just bury our heads in the sand and ignore the world around us. And it's not that terrible things are not a reality. It's truly been a really rough few months for many people in our country. But I think we need to be aware of what we are mentally consuming. Brothers and sisters, think about it. Put in your brain, marinate on whatever is true, whatever is noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. Because if you think about these things and you put them into practice, peace will be with you. So this morning, which way are you paddling? 2, gratitude is a command. Did you know God commands praise? He commands gratitude. He commands thankfulness. Why would God command thanks? It sounds a little disturbing. Like we read Bible stuff and we're like, that sounds fine. That's weird. Thank me. I'm the Lord. I have an ego problem. I mean, if you need that kind of thing, God, okay, fine. I'll praise you. I'll be really, really clear about this morning. God does not command thanks for himself. He commands it for us. This is what we are made to do. We are effusive human beings. Half of our media feeds are us hitting the share button, for gosh sakes. If there's one thing that humans do, it's tell other humans about things that we find awesome. I mean, I'm up front. I have all your attention right now, and it's really, really hard for me not to tell you about the video that I saw the other day. There's a dog that is waiting patiently to get his ice cream at the ice cream truck that's in front of his house, and his little paws are like tippy-tapping. He's so excited for ice cream. But you know what? I am mature. I will not share it. I have okay, here it is. It's right here. What in? Look at his little paws. That girl's catching a breeze off the tail. We're such suckers for dog videos, aren't we? There is a C.S. Lewis quote that I read over a decade ago, and it has been stuck in my brain ever since, so I'm going to share it with you this morning. I think we delight to praise what we enjoy because the praise not merely expresses, but completes the enjoyment. It is its appointed consummation. It's not out of compliment that lovers keep telling one another how beautiful they are. The delight is incomplete until it is expressed. It's so frustrating to have discovered a new author and not be able to tell anyone how good he is, or to come suddenly at the turn of the road upon some mountain valley of unexpected grandeur and then have to keep it silent because the people you are with care no more for it than a tin can in a ditch, or to hear a good joke and find no one to share it with. There's a Scottish catechism that says that man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. But we shall then know that these are the same thing. To fully enjoy is to glorify. In commanding us to glorify him, God is inviting us to enjoy him. I'm always struck by the fact that in our story about the lepers, Jesus doesn't get mad at the 9. He doesn't rescind the gift or restrike them with leprosy. The healing is unconditional. He doesn't require gratefulness. But the one who came back as the only one whose healing process was completed. He got to say thank you. I feel like I'm doing a math equation or a geometry proof. Number one, we must be aware that the power of negative streams have on our gratitude. Gratefulness is incomplete unless it is expressed. And you are still noticing your nose more than you wanted to when you came to church this morning. Joking aside, it's really about focus, isn't it? I know we're not purely input-output machines, but what we focus on makes a big difference on our ability to be grateful. Behind me and on the sides, people have taken time over the last couple of weeks to create a visual reminder of the things that they are thankful for. And I want to invite you guys up here after service to look these over. There is a lot in our church and our lives to be grateful for. I want to hit on one final thing. How do we hold on to gratefulness when we're in a season where we have a lot to be angry, sad, or devastated about? If it's hard for lepers to be grateful when they're healed of a terminal disease, how harder is it to be grateful when we're not? I love the Psalms. Love reading through them for this reason. Because the Psalms, if you really read them, are a muddled mix of cries for help mixed with thanksgiving and praise. It's incredibly real. In one sentence, someone's arguing with God, asking, why didn't he show up? In the next, he's effusively thanking him for providing. It feels like living with God often does. Confusing. It's beautiful, messy, unclear, real. My favorite and the favorite of so many Jesus followers throughout the centuries is Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. Guides me along the right paths. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. But this morning, you might be wondering where your green pastures and your still waters are. We're going to take a peek at a video that might give us some more context to the meaning behind these verses. This is Bible professor Ray Vanderlaan.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. The Lord leads me into green pastures. I remember clearly my first hike in the desert of Israel. I was following a professor along with other students that were in the class. We hiked miles into the desert. Along the way, we came across several flocks of sheep and goats. I was stunned, to be honest. There wasn't much growing there, just rocks and mountains, dry as could be. And yet those flocks slowly moved across the hillside as if they were grazing. I said to one of the classmates, "What do those sheep eat?" He sort of rolled his eyes at me as if to say, how can you be educated and not know what sheep eat? But he went on to explain that there's two ways that moisture comes to the desert. There are meager spring rains, just a bit. And then the evening wind coming off the Mediterranean brings humid air that condenses on the warm rocks. Between the rainfall and the condensation, that moisture collects in the heavy clay along and beneath the rocks, and little tufts of grass grow. Not a lot, but just a tuft here and a tuft there. The shepherd looks for a hillside exposed to the wind or that had those rains, and the sheep move from tuft to tuft to tuft, finding just enough. As I was writing furiously in my notes, I said to him, "What do you call this?" And he said, "Well, these are the green pastures of the shepherd." I was stunned again. He said, "Your image as a Westerner is probably belly-deep alfalfa." And he was right. It's exactly what I thought, that God leads his flock into these pastures where everything we need for the rest of our lives is found right at hand. But he said life isn't like that. You don't get what you need for any given moment until the moment arrives. Those sheep graze with a mouthful here, just enough, and then in a few moments a mouthful there, just enough. That changed my heart and soul. I've spent the rest of my life since then trying to learn to live that way. Trusting God, knowing when the moment arrives, if I've done my best to prepare, he will provide just enough green pastures. It may not be a whole lot, it may not even be as much as I want, but it will be as much as I need. I think you will find today, as you follow Jesus, that as you move through that desert of your life, there will be green pastures, just enough for each moment.
I think the image of little tufts of grass helps clarify God just a little bit more. If you've walked with God for a while, I think it fits. It'd be really nice if God brought us through life with all the resources and happiness a sheep could want, right? But that's never been my experience of life. And if I take a wild stab, I'm guessing it's not been your experience either. There's always something to worry about, an extra expense we weren't counting on, a disease that steals something from us. Life does not feel like belly-deep alfalfa. It feels more like a precarious mountain with tiny tufts of grass. Amen? But what action does this require of the sheep? They have to follow the shepherd, right? They have to trust that his voice they're following knows where to get the resources they need for the next moment of their sheep life. That dependence can be really uncomfortable for us, but also amazing for us because it builds a trust with the shepherd. I want to give you a few moments of silence to ask God for help with your relationship with gratefulness. Maybe it's a deeper awareness of what's affecting you and what you're mentally consuming. Maybe it's what actions you can take to express your gratefulness. Or maybe you just need a little time with your shepherd. Let's bow. Good morning, Jesus. You are our good shepherd. Jesus, guide us to what we need each day. Nourish our souls with your word. Give us comfort through your community. Help us trust and follow you. God, can you create in us this morning more grateful hearts? Help us be aware of what we let direct our mental focus. Help us focus on your provision and the touch of your Spirit. We are so grateful you are with us. Everybody said? Amen. Amen.